Oh, we get to have. Is this our first repeat guest on the show?
Yeah.
Is Rick Ricart our first repeat guest?
This is Auto Collabs.
Extremely insulting to whoever might be watching that we forgot about. That could be.
We're so sorry if that's you. We really are. We promise that we didn't mean
If it is, we didn't mean it. Rick is one of those characters, and he is a character. If you follow him on social media,
full character.
that is just. I've never been in a barbecue situation with him, but I feel like that's one of the things that needs to happen.
Right. He's definitely the first guy to jump in the pool with all his clothes on. I'm telling you right now, every time.
Or the opposite. Or the opposite.
Right. Or the second half of that sentence gets a little dicey. Yeah, I get it.
I'm not going to lie. I see his resume. I got him up on LinkedIn, all the things. He's well outspoken. I just want to talk to him about motorcycles.
That's it.
Well, that's kind of all. Well, because you have the same challenge that I do. Is that, you don't anymore because you live in Texas, but when you lived in Canada, motorcycle season was approximately 2.5 weeks.
That's right. It's like,
get out, go. Oh, man. It's so true. Well, look, he's definitely one of the most savviest dealers.
Now I want to see Michael Cirillo riding a motorcycle next to Rick Ricart, because I've stood next to both of you, and the size difference is staggering.
We're going to put Rick on a small bike and Cirillo on a huge bike.
We're going to be like circus bears on a tricycle.
That's unbelievable. Wait, we hope that you enjoy this conversation with Rick Ricart. Probably get a little bit crazy, but also insightful. Here's Rick.
Rick, thank you so much for taking some time out to spend a little time talking about all the important things in life, cheese fries, mullets, and the car business a little bit too.
Easy on that. Tapered mullets that can only be seen from behind. Do they actually exist?
Do they exist? That's like the tree that fell in a forest.
That's exactly mullet. Right. Exactly right. So you go by president, dealer, but a really interesting title that you go by is Chief Vision Officer. Why Chief Vision Officer? How do you think through that and deploy it on a regular basis?
So we 3 years ago, the summer of 2020, that first infamous summer of COVID, we had an opportunity to take a step back and relook at things. We had a lot of time on our hands. Business was closing early. There wasn't a whole lot to do on a day-to-day basis, and we've been in a succession kind of transition in our company for about the past 7-8 years. My uncle Rhett Ricart was the chairman of the NADA organization in 2020. Right. So, he has kind of removed himself. And I have a cousin, Jared Ricart, who's Rhett's son, and we were named as the co-presidents. And my uncle basically sat us down and said, okay, well, I'm heading off to do all this NADA stuff, and then I'm going to semi-retire after that. So you guys run the company. We're like, okay, cool. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? And it's there's not a playbook for this. There's not, just do it. Just do the job, right? So kind of let us go. And we were trying to figure out what roles that we should have and how that should look and what our responsibilities should be. And then my cousin's in a peer group organization that gave a presentation on the EOS business model, or the entrepreneurial operating system. Mm-hmm. That the famous book Traction by Gino Wickman is all about that EOS business model. And we met a implementer who basically takes companies and helps them launch this EOS business model. It's the org chart, it's the meeting cadence, it's a lot of things to help us get organized and help us figure out the right path. And the two positions at the top are the visionary and the integrator. So the integrator position, which my cousin holds, is really the one responsible for day-to-day operations, for profit and loss, for lead manage accountability, kind of a COO type of role. His job is to make sure that the trains run on time.
Yeah.
My job as visionary is more to look out into the future, be responsible for creativity, culture, big deals, acquisitions, major external relationships. So that kind of fell into my wheelhouse. I am not a structured, I'm going to be in at this time, leave at that time type of person. And my cousin is, and he came up through the fixed ops side of things. So it's totally normal for him to be here at 7 a.m., 7:30 a.m., unlocking the gates. And I was always pushing to, that's why our sales don't start till 10 a.m. because I pushed them back for years, Nobody shows up at 9 a.m.
Wow, get this bullet right.
Yeah. We're going to sleep in. We're going to,
we got dreams to have while we sleep. Come on.
Right. How are you going to dream if you're not sleeping?
And that's what are dreams? Dreams are visions. So I got to do a lot of sleeping, a lot of dreaming, and it really gives me the opportunity to take the time to build on, to work on the acquisitions and the growth of the company. So I look at it as my main responsibility is to grow, expand, and diversify. And if I was stuck in the weeds of day-to-day operation, we would only be focused on growing what we organically have. We want to expand. 3 years ago, we got into the motorcycle world. We acquired America's oldest Harley dealer with two locations now here in Columbus. And then the end of 2021, we acquired a Chevy Buick GMC store to keep growing our portfolio for our customers. And really, a lot of that has to go back to the fleet and commercial world. The business-to-business side of the new cars has been growing for 10, 15 years rather rapidly. So being able to offer a different variety of products to all of those business owners in Columbus has been a really good thing.
So when, obviously you're looking out over the horizon there's a lot, probably coming for you as an organization, but there's still the necessity to kind of understand what's happening in the market and connect everything that you're doing from visionary culture standpoint to what's happening for the consumer right now. How are you taking a forward vision? I'm wanting to innovate, I'm wanting to grow, and draft that back into how your team, how your employees, how your showrooms and service drives look right now for customers as they're dealing with the market the way it is.
Yeah, so there's always a strategy and a process because we're never going to get from 0 to 100 on any of those things, right? This is a aircraft carrier industry, as I call it, and it takes 24 hours to turn around an aircraft carrier. We make little changes that compound over time. There's no hotter two letters in our industry than EV, right? What is EV? Right. What does it mean? Where are we at today? What's that look like? And I'm having to kind of build my crystal ball and then at the same time decide, okay, what actions are we taking today? And I could spend the entire time talking about that because I sit through all the lectures, seminars, read articles, newsletters, talk to industry experts and listen to our manufacturers, what they're telling us. And then at the same time, keeping my pulse on consumer demand and collecting all those dots. And that's a very muddy water topic. I mean, it is so difficult to really decide what are we doing today.
Right.
Because I'll just give you an example. Between our really 3 automotive locations, we have 37 chargers installed active right now. We will have 50 chargers by the end of the summer based on our manufacturer's requirements. We're investing a ton of money into these things. And we have 7 EVs in stock total across 11 brands right now.
What?
Whoa. And it's not
so it's like this kind of balance thing. It's okay, I need 50 of these things, but I got 7. Are the customers coming for what? Where are we going with this? Because the OEM is almost like what I don't know if you I don't know if you deal with this with your OEM brands, right? You've got brands across a bunch of different brands, but I was talking to some OEM partners, they're struggling with this fact that on the ground at dealers right now is ICE vehicles, right? ICE and hybrid vehicles. That's where the inventory lives. But the culture and marketing demand is all pushing on EVs. And there's this how do we match these two communication patterns in the market today? And it's you're dealing with that with even down to chargers. right?
Yeah, it's a super regional thing also. I mean, I'm going to say things that dealers in California are going to be like, he's absolutely wrong, because
Right.
we are in two completely different worlds when it comes to EVs. California, Florida, Texas, like there are states that are where the hype is real.
Yeah,
The
bigger
hype is
adoption,
real.
bigger infrastructure, demand.
They have the climate, they have the weather. The manufacturers are pumping 80% of those vehicles to those states. But Ohio is required to follow the same, dealer requirements as those other states. But there are literally models of brands that we sell that I cannot even sell you. I can't dealer trade and sell it to you if I wanted to. They will not even let us have those vehicles.
What's one of those? Give me an example of that. Like
Um,
what?
some of the Hyundai Ioniqs,
You can't even get them.
some of the trim levels are only for California and those zero emission states. So there's
Wow.
but it's not like we really want them because there's not the demand here yet. So when we talk about the marketing, I'm going to call it the hype. There's a lot more hype than hope right now. And you have the hype being built for Wall Street, the stock market. I mean, these major automotive manufacturers, you think of Ford and GM and how important stock value is to them. Well, Tesla came on the scene, absolutely lit up Wall Street like, oh, this is the greatest thing, put your money into. Now, what are you big old traditionals doing? So they created a ton of hype around their EV products. And in the past 6 months, they've quietly just disappeared. They quietly quit building things like the Mach-E and limited production of the F-150 Lightning. Like, they don't actually exist to the level that the media and the marketing.
No way.
So there's a lot of hype around these things. So people put their money in the stock market. But the truth is, at the ground level, at a dealership in Columbus, Ohio, ain't nobody.
There's no hope that
about
that's
them.
actually the future of your business in 2024.
It is not so the building I'm sitting in right now, we're building a brand new Hyundai showroom. It's beautiful. We're having a grand opening next month. You should come out. 2-story, beautiful Hyundai showroom. We're in our former Mazda showroom that was empty that we converted to our offices while that's being built. That's where kind of our offices are. So we're moving out of here in like 3 weeks. And I kept looking at this space that I'm looking at outside my window here. And I thought, why not build an EV experience center? Why don't we go get, every single model that we sell new that's 100% electric, put a couple chargers out front, put a little coffee bar, have an hourly EV champion be able to go on test drives or let somebody rent one for the weekend and experience it. And we were going to invest in some of this EV stuff. And then
Absolutely.
we started really looking at the consumer demand and looking at inventory, production, what allocation is going to look like. And I think we have 2 to 3 years before we even have to think about it. It's nowhere close. A lot of manufacturers or OEMs are building plants right now. They're building these big battery plants. They're all doing it. They're building battery plants. They're building new plants to make these EVs. Those plants won't be open until 2025, 2026, 2027. They're all telling us that they think they'll be at 40% production or 35% production, all EVs, by 2030. So it's like, all this hype that's happening. And I was following the hype and buying in on it. The more research and thinking that we've done, it's like, no, we've got the chargers. We'll sell them out of the showrooms if we can get them, if someone wants one. But for us to try to create and push that market is, I don't quite have the hope that it's going to have the impact for at least a couple of years, at least in the market that I'm in.
Such a different understanding.
But you bring up a really good point here. And it's a distinction that I don't think a lot of people make, especially in this digital era, that tech companies by their nature must produce hype because they have nothing else to sell.
Yeah.
Like you brought up the distinction about like Wall Street. Wall Street is all based on hype. Everything that they buy into, I mean, that is the product that they sell. It's not actually the tech product, because we all know that doesn't work the way it's being pitched. It's all about the hype. This leads me to 2 questions. One has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about, and the other has maybe there's a loose tie-in. I'm going to start with the one that has nothing to do with what we talk about, and then swerve us back into the lane here. You mentioned Harley Davidson. that you acquired the oldest Harley Davidson store in America. Upon acquiring that store, does it infuriate you as much as it does me to see dudes riding bikes that are either too big or too small for them?
I knew you were going some motorcycle culture thing.
You know what I'm saying? Like, dude rolls up to it. Dude rolls
He
up.
breathes
He knows
out
what you're
very
saying. He just
slowly.
has customers of all types, Michael.
It's like, I'm just saying, dude rolls up to the stoplight and his knees
Yeah.
are, he's flat footed, but his knees are right up underneath his helmet. And you're like, bro.
Yeah. So I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty. That's why I'm laughing. Because,
He's like both sides. I have a tiny one, it's like this, and a big one that's like this.
Actually, there's going to be a lot of truth to that. So I ride a 2019 Road Glide. It's CVO, and I've got the bigger bars, and it's a performance bagger. It's a touring bike. It kind of does it all. It's big. It's loud. It's 150 horsepower. Big loud stereo. Does all the things. I also have on order a Livewire Del Mar.
See, that's different.
Oh, okay.
That's different though.
Okay.
Because
but the size of it. So, for years we've been taking in stuff on trade-in for years. And someone will trade in, a Ninja 600 or actually that's probably not cool enough to talk about. Maybe like a Ducati 916 or something back in the day.
Yep.
And I'm pushing 6'3", 250, and it's probably not the thing that I love to ride everything.
The whole thing. Yeah.
I'll be on my 50cc Honda Ruckus cruising down the road on my scooter to go grab Gatorade. Like, so I gotta ride everything.
He threw Gatorade on there.
And the mullet extension with the flip flops going to get Gatorade on the 50cc bike. Now the picture's all shaking up. Yeah.
But that
Thanks,
actually,
Michael.
By happenstance, we did not plan this beforehand, but you kind of led right naturally into my second question about the EV thing and market conditions and what customers are doing. How soon, and if ever, does a market segment like a Harley buyer adopt an EV Harley? Right?
Never.
Kind of a strange thing where because a lot of the narrative, you brought up the hype, and this is what got me thinking about it. A lot of the narrative is we're going to phase out all of this. Petroleum products, forget that. We're going back to gravel roads, people. No asphalt anymore. Petroleum's gone. Oh. But now you've got the Harley segment, which is a big segment, who are like, so what? I turn this thing on and it doesn't make any noise?
Yeah. Or like Audi. You don't have Audi stores, I don't think, but like Audi, same way. It's like, hey, we got a high performance car, all EV. Here it comes, and whatever type of model. Like, how does a brand or even how does a dealership group start to work with those customers that have kind of leaned in on this high performant type brand and move them over as this starts to come down the line?
So there's been cars that have come out for years that I think are deemed high performance that really take no skill to drive them. What's an obvious one? Nissan GTR. Right? Cool car, fast car, Godzilla engine, all those things. But it's an all-wheel drive automatic with a computer system that's smarter than the driver.
Won't let you do anything,
time.
right?
Won't let you really do anything. I just came out of a F-150 Lightning. I had it since September. I put 8,500 miles on it. That thing was as fast as a GTR. It's four-wheel drive. It's automatic.
All the powers to the wheels right away.
Hit the accelerator and whoa, it goes real fast. But it takes a lot of the thrill out of driving. And I cannot wait to get out of it and to get into something I can actually shift gears. I like stick shift. I like older cars. I like having to work and do a good job to make it go fast. They just do it for you. It's really kind of lazy performance. And I think that's one area that the purists, kind of like the Harley riders, they like that big loud engine. They want to downshift. They want to go through the gears. And I think there's a lot of people that, and I said this for the past few years, there's going to be a day that I wake up and a autonomous electric car pulls up in front of my house to take me to work, and I'm reading a book in the back seat with no driver. But I'll be damned if on weekends I'm not banging gears in a GT350.
Right, you're like, just
Hey,
drive me to the
Southern Colorado.
graveyard and
Right.
leave me
Hey.
there.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a place for both. I think that
Yeah.
the world of
Yep.
multimodal transportation has been, around since the first, really Uber hit the ground, or in some cities, where, taxis were more prevalent and stuff like that. And we work with what's called the smart city here in Columbus, that 5 years ago, they started with the NHTSA grant to figure out electric vehicles and autonomous and all this adoption. And even they have come to realize that there's going to be a vehicle someone owns at their house, could be hybrid, could be ICE, maybe electric. But then there's going to be other public transportation and other alternative transportation options that to get from point A to point B may look a lot different in 10 years.
Let me ask you this. So we're kind of like going full circle now, so we only have a few minutes left.
Oh, no.
We've gone chief vision officer, right? And then we've kind of gone the whole cycle, right? EVs, what the adoption, the hype versus the hope, the different mentalities around multimodal transportation. Let's get back into the showroom because you have people coming in every day. You have salespeople and service people and a BDC, and people have a real sentiment, right? And a real desire to do a certain thing, but like, you are going to be the best litmus test of that because you're on the front lines. Your team is on the front lines. What are you seeing are the trends that are in the showroom right now?
Okay. Number one is negative equity is just through the roof. We are seeing a lot of people that were having trouble get them out of their cars, get them out of the trucks, especially those that bought in the past 2.5 years when the market's been super high, new cars going for well over MSRP, late model used cars going for MSRP or close by. Now that the market is normalizing, it has been very difficult. So you see a lot of negative equity.
And do you see this as the very beginning of that trend?
Yeah.
You see this as continuing for a while?
Yeah, and that's why I think, as I wrote down some notes here about what would I say to the fellow dealer, like my focus is more on repair than replace right now. The service department. We just had a meeting this morning. How do we get back to 7 days a week in service? How do we staff techs 7 days a week? Pickup and delivery has increased demand big time. We started pickup and delivery during the summer. So 3 years ago, we started it. Didn't really have the demand yet. We partnered with a local company with a driver network service. Now it's becoming something that people are now asking for and realizing they don't really want to bring their car in for service. So being able to really get big on offering pickup and delivery for service, being able to get people into service quickly. A lot of dealerships, you call them for a major repair, they're going to tell you they're 4 or 5 weeks out. You got to fix that problem. They're going to go somewhere else. Service is going to sell the next car because a lot of people are going to be forced to repair rather than replace anytime soon. The other thing we're seeing is leasing is really good. Leasing is, if there's a lease program, some of our Kia and Hyundai and some of those brands have some really good lease programs that seem to be doing well for us.
What are the best ones right now, in your opinion? What's leasing out best?
Hyundais and Kias. I mean, we've got
all of them.
I mean, they're no. I mean, Elantra, Forte.
But that's a big deal because when you think about the showroom, that's extremely important right now because the last 2 years leases haven't been good. No. And so even just like new salesperson understanding a lease, understanding how to, talk about a lease, talk about a residual, talk about a money factor and educate the customer on a lease is like the first step in making sure that you can get someone to even see that lease payment. Right. Exactly. So that's a whole training step that I think a lot of people are talking about, like training the BDC, training people from like customer acquisition into the showroom, but training on that lease part in particular is we haven't seen good lease rates over the last 2 years because inventory has been shallow, meaning subvented leases haven't been there, but those are coming back before rebates are even coming back probably. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. There's an education that has to happen with every customer right now. And you just hit a major word too I was going to bring up, which is training. Getting the sales staff back to training. We're watching our website visitors drop because as people go online now and they start doing payment calculators and they start doing, equity analysis of their current vehicle, they're not even talking to us. They're not even coming to the website because they realize there's negative equity, rates are high. Wow, look how high this payment is. When we get someone in the actual showroom and we can sit them down, that's a whole conversation that has to happen. Because if you think back in 2019, the number one problem in our industry was affordability. Cars were getting too expensive. The average transaction price of a domestic pickup truck was over $50,000. Luxury cars were over $55,000, and people were not being able to afford them. All that's happened in 3 years is those prices have gone up and up and up. The manufacturers have followed the demand. Oh, well, people are willing to pay $80,000 and $100,000 for a new pickup truck. Well, there was some economic things happening 2 years ago that allowed them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So now they bought those vehicles. They're coming in to trade them in. And even those that don't have have that type of negative equity, we're having to sit them down and explain to them and show that formula to explain why it's an $800, $900, $1,000 car payment now. That's where we're at. Where 3-4 years ago it was, $400, $450. It's kind of that sweet spot, and most people would be comfortable. Now it's easily $700, $800 on average, and that's including some of the late model used stuff. Interest rates are up,
right?
But the subvented rates are one of the bright spots. One of the bright spots are manufacturers with 0% with 1.9. That is working. People are coming in because they know that the rate is such a major factor. I think one of the most popular things right now is a subvented rate of 5.99 for 84 months. That is something people are coming in asking for.
Wow.
Coming in asking for that.
That's because of the inequity or because of the high prices.
Because it all comes back to payment.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's obviously something that we don't push for. We've always pulled up what our average term is on a quarterly basis and discussed it with everyone in our all the upper management. And when national reports came out, I think maybe this was probably a year and a half ago, that the average term was like 67 months, and we were at 62. Like, we started like clapping about that. Like, it's not a contest to see who can have the longest average term. Because that's tougher to get that trade cycle, to get people out of their vehicles. The other thing we're fighting is the inventory mix. Sucks. Like, there are a lot of ICE vehicles. We've got a lot of stuff on the ground, but it's not a lot of desirable product. It's not a lot of the stuff that we really want to order and get. We've just been saying yes to anything we could possibly get our hands on for 2.5 years. So
interesting.
Now we're sitting on a lot of inventory that we're like, okay, we got to blow some of this stuff out. And then now start being selective as to what we're saying yes to, because no surprise, the OEMs are now over manufacturing.
We knew that was coming.
They couldn't figure out how to balance that. They're like, wait a minute.
Unbelievable.
You don't want
we called that
more,
years ago. I mean, it's a tough business.
It's
you don't want
business.
1,000 more white, base model somethings. Like, we got them.
They're coming. They're coming.
They're here.
Well, Rick, I'm telling you what, if there's not enough to think about there, like, if someone's not thinking about something every single day, it's blowing my mind, because it's clear you're thinking about a lot of these things. So from mullets to motorcycles, we've had a ton of fun hanging out with you. Really appreciate you being on Auto Collabs, and on behalf of all three of us, it's just been a super fun and insightful conversation.
It always is. Thank you.
All right. Did not disappoint is my rating of that episode.
All I could think about, I can't remember
motorcycles.
Motorcycles, yes, but the lines are blurred. I can't remember what we talk about pre-show and during show anymore. But he did bring up the gentleman's mullet, and I'm not kidding you here. No, he called it a tapered mullet. I wrote down tapered mullet could equal new word for hairy back.
The scary part is you wrote it down, which means there's the opportunity for you to get to read that a year from now.
I'm gonna be like,
and be like, wait, what were we talking about?
Yeah.
Well, it's like why
or someone
Italian
else
dudes
find
wear
that.
gold chains, right? You know why Italian dudes wear gold chains, so we know where to stop shaving.
Oh man, the other thing that actually struck me about that conversation is,
I feel like we're doing Rick Ricart well by this outro. Like,
absolutely.
He's gonna hear this outro if he listens to this episode.
He's gonna be like, that's the better thing.
I knew
that's
I liked those guys.
But at the end there, when he was just like rattling off all of the things that the market and dealers and consumers are having to approach right now, it's like, It's EVs. It's, how to market ICE vehicles among EVs. It's inequity, 84 month payments, whether I'm going to go loan or lease. There is just the mass amount of education that a consumer and a dealer has to assume and ingest and then flow out from to be able to buy a car is staggering to me right now. So that speed of education just has to be so quick.
It is. It's really one of the things that breaks down one of the kind of like leanings that we always have in when we say dealers or retailers. There aren't very many retail industries that are that complicated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it really is a complex.
You're like, do I want the white socks
supply
or the black socks?
right.
Okay.
That's retail.
Small, medium, large.
It is retail.
Yeah.
It is. All right. Well, look. If you haven't, no, you're going to
Cirillo, do it.
No,
Do
Michael,
it, Cirillo.
Take us out the way we should go out.
I was like, I really love your conversation with each other, but I'm going to close this. Hey, we hope you enjoyed this episode of Auto Collabs. On behalf of myself, Michael Cirillo, Kyle Mountsier, and Paul J. Daly, we'll catch you on the next one.
Welcome to Auto Collabs. Why are we recording?
Are we rolling yet?